Welcome to the Acoustics Podcast. This is Brian Mitchell, your host and founder of acoustics.com. And today we're talking about some of the best and worst things we saw at CEDIA EXPO 2025, which was held last week, September 3rd through the 6th, which covers home theater, soundbars, architectural speakers, outdoor audio and video systems for luxury homeowners. And with that, I'm honored to welcome a special guest, AV industry expert and business owner, John Sciacca. He not only writes about the AV integration market, it's his business. He runs custom theater and audio in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and is THX and ISF certified. And he has written for numerous publications since 1998. And you can find most of his recent stories at Residential Systems, as well as Acoustics. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you.
That's basically how my wife enters me when I come home. It's a nightly thing.
Yep. All right. Nice to have everyone here, but I'm going to start off with John. First time guest on the podcast. I know you've been to CEDIA Expo many times. What was different and exciting about this year's show?
Well, I gotta say, I wrote a show recap for it, and the first thing I put on there was, when you see somebody at the show, that there's two things that everybody says, and it's how have you been, and what have you seen that's cool. And when I came back into work, it's literally the first thing that two of my coworkers said. And the thing is generally at the show, you've got a pretty quick answer for this is what I saw that was really cool. But I felt like this year's show was a lot more evolutionary than revolutionary. I think a lot of the stuff that we saw was things that were like just, kind of improvements or evolving from what we had seen in the past, as opposed to here's a brand new, really cool thing that wasn't out. And I had several manufacturers tell me that tariffs had really put a halt to some of their new product development. And so it was like, we don't really have a lot new for this show, but stay tuned next year. They've kind of got the tariff stuff sorted. So again, not that there weren't cool things at the show, but it was more like, this is the latest version of this thing you saw last year, or we were talking about this and now here it is. So again, it kind of a loaded question away. There are tons of cool stuff that was there, but nothing that I saw that was really new that I had not really experienced before.
Well, I know everyone gets excited about the $1 million system because there's always at least one there. And was this year's $1 million system from memory any better than last year's, or what did they do?
I think that one of the things that I really noticed is kind of a trend in the ultra high end stuff is the move toward infrasonic subwoofers, which again, I don't know how big it was in the theater, 80-inch or something. It was like, the only word that I could think of was like obscene. It reminded me of what Marty McFly stood in front of in Back to the Future. Imagine like having 4 of those in your living room, behind a baffle wall or whatever. But it's like we've gone as far as a traditional subwoofer, I think, can take us. But again, I would say it's almost like the $1 million system. Of course, it's impressive, but also it's almost like not impressive, because it's like for $1 million, yes, it's going to be amazing, but it's like it's hard to impress you for that kind of money. A lot more impressive to be like, okay, well, this is what we did with 80,000 or something. We're for $1 million, it's like more like, well, yeah, it blew my mind, but it's like it had to, right? And I thought that Paul Hales with Pro Audio Technology and Theory, he's a fantastic presenter, just fantastic, and he's like, at the end of his presentation, he's like, so upstairs there's a $1 million plus system. It is like, so maybe you guys are wondering, what does a $1 million Theory audio system look like? And he's like, you get all of these speakers and then this $920,000 house to put it in. So and it was just like this amazing perspective of like, what $1 million is. It's like, just insanity. But Yes, the $1 million system sounded amazing. Although I will say, they had, and Chris and Robert might have been to it. They had a
Yep.
massive press demo scheduled,
Yeah.
and they could not get it to work, which
that
is
was
part of,
disappointing.
yeah,
Chris is
part-
there.
yeah. But it's like, it just goes to show you that there's an insane amount of complexity in these systems, right? And especially they was all running audio over IP, and it was like so bad they had to like go back to like the factory and get like the original engineering files for the processors and crazy stuff. But welcome to the world of us.
Yeah, I think in that case it was a networking issue because they were running audio over 2 different IP networks, and you know how the networks are at CEDIA. They're a mess. I mean, try to connect to Wi-Fi. You can't. So yeah, we were waiting for almost 40 minutes to get that demo to work, and they were like, well, can you come back later? And we did, and it sounded amazing, but that must have been so frustrating because you get 8 vendors there, all with really high-end, top-of-the-line stuff, and just one little glitch just brings the system to its knees. So
that $99
that's the midnight calls
switch
to you, right? Those are the calls that you get at midnight, like, my system doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Well, I mean, that's a good question, John. You install some of the stuff, or maybe a good portion of what's being shown there. You install it, and you've had use of it firsthand. So, are you looking specifically for your business of what new products are you going to carry, and does that change year to year?
Yeah, I mean, it does. So I go there, with a couple of different hats. I mean, one, I'm covering it for the show daily, the magazine that they hand out at the show. I'm looking for products that I would like to bring in for review. And then we're in a smallish market. I mean, we're not doing $1 million systems here. But I'm looking for that thing, that I probably haven't seen in person. Like, we're a Sony Diamond dealer. So like last year, they launched their new Bravia 8 and 9 projectors. And again, so that's not something that we sell at our store, and to see it firsthand. The XD OLED and the QD OLED and the Bravia Mark II OLED, chance to see that stuff in person, which we are going to sell. But also, it's things like in the Sanus booth, there was a really cool wall mount for Sonos Arc Ultra speaker. And this was a wall mount that would hold the bar tight and flat to the wall, which is how we like to install it because it looks clean. And it manages the cabling, but then you could pull it out up to 5 inches so that you get the upfiring drivers away from the bottom of the TV. So like, that is something that I did not know about that we will now start selling. And then it's also a great chance just to we're a pretty big Lutron rep, to go and have meetings with we're not a Lutron rep, a Lutron dealer, to have meetings with our Lutron rep, discuss things like, so it's a chance to see new stuff. It's a chance to, if you've had a problem, to like, hey, look, what's the solution? I'm having this weird issue. So again, CEDIA, it's a lot of touch points for me.
And I'm curious what your average customer comes in and buys or is looking for, and they think they might want to spend X and you make them spend Y.
So it depends. I mean, we've been in business for 30 years. And so, we kind of have that no job too small mentality. If you want to come in and have us mount a TV that you bought, at Best Buy, if we're not too busy, we'll do that. I mean, our corporate philosophy has always been, if we get a foot in your door, you're our customer now. So again, take a small job and then convert that person. Obviously, and we do a lot of new construction, and which is where you can do a lot more. I just finished a proposal yesterday for, it'll be house-wide pre-wire networking security, like, $35,000, 9 rooms of audio, a bunch of networking and stuff like that. I would say my favorite thing, the thing that literally got me into this business, was front projection. I love home theater. I love it. Unfortunately, in our market, there are no basements. The water table is too high. And so, and our customers that have the money to do a nice home theater, they're also buying a lot where the view might be, $2 million, looking at the ocean. So we don't do a lot of projection because it's hard. We don't have the right room for it here.
Mhm.
You know, so you know, we've been going to bigger LED panels. You know, in our one display room, we have a 77-inch Sony OLED, an 85-inch, and a 98-inch. And so people can see like, okay, this is what the differences look like of these three size televisions, and really quickly get an idea. We did the first 115-inch TCL TV, I think, on the East Coast,
Mm.
which that is a whole thing in itself. It's a 550-pound shipping weight.
Whew.
It's crazy. But again, you know, a lot of single room systems, you know, in the $10,000 to $20,000 range, a lot of home, you know, whole house systems in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. A couple of jobs a year over six figures. Lighting and shading has been a super growth category for us. So like,
Mm.
you know, one of the things I saw at the show that was really cool is Hunter Douglas was showing motorized shades for like angled windows. So imagine a window that looks like a 45-degree triangle. They can make a shade that will automate and fill that angle,
Mm.
which is very cool. They cut it custom and fabricate it, and so yeah.
So you don't have to spend $1 million, but you can. But on, but on top of that, the very high end, in terms of the video, kind of like what you were saying, has shifted maybe to micro LED, which I know was one of the big themes at the show. These huge video walls. Can you
Yeah,
speak to us about what you saw there?
absolutely. I mean, to me, that's still a little high end for our market. We've not done one yet because like a
Mm.
cheap micro LED is like $60,000.
Right.
And but I mean, there's the promise of micro LED. It's like, I mean, first of all, think logistically, right? Getting a 115-inch screen into somebody's house
Mm.
logistically can be a nightmare. Again, we're dealing with freight elevators. It would not fit in there. You know, you might have to go up 3 flights of stairs and make turns and stairs. You're literally not doing
Pivot,
that.
pivot.
Yeah, that's like pivot. So, you know, again, if you think about, you know, these luxury places like, you know, Manhattan penthouses and things, you like literally could not get a traditional giganto TV or even screen in there, right? The screen frames are too big. So micro
Mm.
LED, you're bringing in these small tiles.
Mhm.
So again, from that standpoint, it opens up the ability to do installations where you couldn't have. Um, there were a lot of them all over the floor. Um, I am very sensitive to seeing seams and dimples. And so
Mm.
Mm.
basically these are tiles that kind of snap together, and they line up. In a perfect world, you would see nothing between the edges of one tile and the edges of another tile. But whether it's an all black screen or an all white screen or bright, I am really susceptible to seeing the seams. And once you see it, it
Mm.
completely takes me out of it. And that's now all I can see. And
Yeah.
so, you know, you're looking at, again, I don't want to name drop anybody, but, you know, somebody's, you know, $500,000 panel. And, you know, we're sitting there. And again, it could have been the lighting because there was a light in the space behind us, but it goes dark. And then all I see now are dimples and seams. And now I'm watching and I can't unsee it. And it's
Mm.
Yeah.
like, you know, that to me, it's like, that's a non-starter. But the one panel that year after year after year after year, because it's 4 years in a row, is quantum media systems.
Yeah.
Mm.
That it's like, you know, I wrote on my write-up, it's like, you know, people say like, and they win the lottery, they're going to do this or do that. It's like, I'm getting a freaking quantum media panel in my house.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. I never see seams. And to me, it looks like a 20-foot wide OLED. The
Yeah.
blacks are
Exactly.
gorgeous. The brights
Mhm.
are amazing. The resolution is
Yep.
fantastic. That to me, and it's not like, again, I don't want to bash anybody, but you walk up to some of these panels and it's almost like, again, I go back a bit. Do you guys ever remember Fujitsu Plasma?
Of course.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
so kind of like standing next to a hair dryer. They put out a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Like that's what some of these video walls are. Like you get close to them and it's like there is a giant change of temperature. And imagine if you're watching that in a closed room, it is going to giantly raise temperature. You can go up and put your hand on the quantum wall and it's not, it's barely warm. So just what those guys do, I mean, year after year, super, super impressive.
Yeah.
It's coming down again. I think when I first saw it, it was like, oh, it's 900,000. Then it was 750,000. Then it was 500,000. I think we're down to like, I don't know, 400,000. So it's, as I wrote, it's getting cheaper, still not cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to bring in Chris on this because the quantum micro LED wall was your choice or our choice for best in show TV.
Yeah.
So what are they doing that Sony, Samsung, and the other LG, the other players in the market aren't doing? What have they done?
Well, they say they make their cabinets, as they call them, the individual panels themselves, to a very high manufacturing specification. So there's almost no bezel on the side. And they use a matte finish to their screen, which is the same matte finish on the bezel of the screen, as tiny as it is. So when you mate these cabinets together, it's a uniform reflectiveness or reflectivity, so that when there is ambient light, you don't see a different kind of reflection on where the seams are and where the screen is. And I mean, that manufacturing precision must be really, really tight because, like John said, I was 2 feet away from that screen and I couldn't find the seams. And I've been in $500,000, $1 million home theaters, some owned by celebrities who have gone with video walls. And, second, third row back, I can see the seams. I don't want to point it out because I don't want buyer remorse from the poor guy who just bought this like $400,000 TV. Couldn't find the seams in the Quantum TV, and it was actually John that gave me the tip about it. It was like, you got to check out Quantum, and I hadn't seen it previous CD year, so I'm glad I stopped by. And yeah, it was very impressive. Yeah, like you said, lottery winning thing. Sure, get me a couple of those. And they can do them in any configuration, right? It doesn't have to be a 16:9. It can be a 2.4 to 1. It can be 2.76 to 1 if you just want to watch Ben-Hur.
Do you know how big the tiles are? Did they show you? Did they pop them out?
Or John, do you know what size the individual cabinets are?
No, and I don't. And I would say to add on to what Chris said, another thing that they really stress is a part of every panel that they sell and deploy is a full white glove installation.
Right.
And
calibration.
they were saying, and calibration, a pixel level calibration.
Right.
And they were saying that most other companies do an LED wall installation in a day.
Oh yeah.
They said they're on the job for a week.
Wow.
And I think a lot of that is just the fine tuning, the perfection, the getting it to where it's like when they leave, it's perfect. And again, if you're going to drop $400,000 on something, when they leave, you want it to be perfect. But I think they just pick they cherry pick the most expensive parts, and then they just, it's their hand built processor too. So they just really, it's like, once you've seen it, it's like, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Yeah. Right. And I think you need like an equipment rack, like the size of a closet, to put all the electronics in that power this TV, something like that. Did you guys see that part of it?
The show.
That's what they had.
I'm not sure how many of those were active at the same time, but I would imagine that they only included what was essential, right? So yeah, you do. I mean, think about it though. Big projectors, like the one that actually got my best in show, the I think it was a Christie. Eclipse version 3 or something like that. Eclipse 3. It's $400,000, and it is liquid cooled, and it probably weighs as much or more than the Quantum View panel. It's also massive and requires basically a projection room behind the home theater so that you don't hear it. So the issue with needing a lot of equipment and needing, to drive it, that's not unique to the micro LEDs. You get, similar things with projectors. I mean, sure, a projector could give you probably an even larger screen than 20 feet across and still be viewable. But that Quantum View was something special.
Right.
Well,
let's
the other
stay
thing
on
too is
projector
will always have the limitation of being a light controlled room, right? I mean, we were watching this Quantum in like like a classroom. The lights on, they drop the lights obviously for the critical viewing, but it's like it is like watching a TV in your living room. It's like as bright, it's 2000 nits, you know, a projector. Really, I mean, again, we have a nice Sony at our house, and I tell my wife, like when we're watching a movie, it's like if she gets her phone out, I'm like, "You're disrespecting the projector." But it's like, you know, again, this is something that could live in a multi-purpose space all day long because it's got so much light output. And again, you're not going to walk in front of it and have a shadow on the screen or any of that stuff. So you have a fantastic picture, better high dynamic range, better black level, and none of the limitations of projection.
Right. And one kind of interesting piece is that, let's say someone throws something at the screen, right? You got kids, who knows? Or one of the panels fails. Guess what? You can just take out the bad panel, put the new one in. Is it going to have to be recalibrated? Of course, but you don't have to replace the whole 200-inch TV in one piece, right? You take one of the 100 modules or whatever that are actually in it, and you replace just that one, recalibrate it, and you're good to go.
All right, I think you guys have made the case. Micro LED could be the future.
Pick one up, Brian.
If we can get one down under 300 something thousand.
I will say one last thing. I was joking with the guy. I'm blanking on his name right now. It's Caesar and somebody else, Ken Hoffman. I was joking with Ken, and he's like, "If you sell 2 of them, I'll give you one." So that's
nice deal.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's like I just got to sell those first 2. That's the hard part, you know. So right here, Chris and Brian, we got my first 2 right there. That's perfect.
All right,
sold. But yeah, let's stay on the video theme, because we do need to talk about some other video best in show winners. We have madVR and Kaleidoscape. What would they be adding on to this TV that it doesn't already do?
Well, the TV doesn't do anything by itself.
Yeah, the Quantum TV does nothing. It's not a smart TV. It's a dumb TV.
So again, starting with the madVR, I mean, just you know, again, arguably best in class HDR processing, which is fantastic. But the thing that really blew me away was the I can't remember what they call it, but subtitle repositioning. Which, man, it's like, so again, first world problem. I have a 235 screen, and some movies will put the subtitles down in the black where you don't see them on a 235 screen, or they'll put half the subtitles in the image and the other half off the screen. And so they can take the subtitles, and not only take the subtitles and reposition them, which is not unheard of. They can also blend the color to more match the scene, so it's not a super bright white. They can lower the size.
That's right.
Just really, really cool stuff. And their motion handling, their AI motion processing. It's like when you see it turned on, and then you see it turned off, you're like, "Oh my God!" It's like, this TV's broken.
Please bring it back.
And again, I think what the best advertisement for madVR, aside from this lengthy, you know, monologue, is that you could, how many people were using it in their booths. It's like, right, I'm coming to CEDIA with my $400,000 projector that I want to look the very best it can possibly look. Let me put this processor with it. You know, booth across booth across booth, you were seeing them use this as their video processor. And their new one, their entry level one, I think is like $69.99, which does the vast majority of things that the expensive one does.
It doesn't do motion AI though.
It does not do motion AI. And again, as great as that was, is that feature worth $10,000?
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, to you, Chris, of course, Chris.
For a $400,000 TV, yep.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know, what I pay as much for the processor as I did my projector? Probably tough. Yeah. What I tell my wife, 0% chance. So, but again, that's the kind of thing I came away with and was like, wow, that's, you know, it's $6,900. That's something that you could sell to a guy who's buying a Bravia 8, Bravia 9 projector to give a market improvement to his picture quality.
Right, and you can keep it on the next display, right? So if you upgrade the projector in 5 years, you can keep the madVR and that tone mapping, which is what it primarily does, the
Yeah,
HDR tone
yeah.
mapping, and the
And a
subtitle
long
feature.
history of free updates. I mean, again,
Right.
dynamic subtitle thing was a free update. So, again, that's one of the cool things. It's like, buy once, cry once with the high end one. He's like,
Exactly.
get it now.
Yep.
It's going to hurt. It's like you rip the Band-Aid off and then you own it. You're good to go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's quickly acknowledge the madVR Extreme Mark III. It's $15,995 as our best in show video processor. So, and I have another video one that I'm not sure if you saw, John, but we have a best invisible AV system. Did you see the Alchimia TV?
It was in the Steinway Lyngdorf booth.
I did. That was actually, they had that last year.
Okay.
Was it was on the floor, and I mean, crazy. It's like so crazy, you're almost not sure what you're watching at first. How the TV could blend into the stone, and how they use cameras to real time adjust the color temperature and the lighting and all that. I feel like that thing though would make you think that the madVR Extreme was a bargain priced.
Yep. It starts at 70,000 for like, I think maybe that's the 55-inch. But it is pretty amazing. I mean,
it's amazing.
They'll take the stone, right, and then they'll measure the TV, and they'll cut the stone so that there's a place to put the TV. They take that cut piece of stone and they scan it into a high-res camera, basically, so they can exactly match the grain of the stone with the image that's on the screen. So when it's not on, you'd have to look twice to figure out that there was actually something there at all, let alone an actual TV. But then once you start watching content, poof, like the stone disappears and suddenly you're watching a movie. So very impressive. And then they do the same thing with speakers. The speakers are actually built into the stone, and they were reaching really high SPL levels, and they sounded very good. But when you combine the speakers and the TV, you're talking at like, hundreds of thousands potentially, depending on the size of the TV and the size of the speakers. But still very impressive, very cool stuff.
That you're in like the realm of ultra high end when they're like, and you can have your stone guy talk to us. It's like, I'll have a stone guy.
I have a stone guy. Sure. I've never had a stone guy.
Right. So for those listening on the audio podcast, we're talking about essentially a stone wall when it's off. That's what your TV system looks like in your audio system. And then it magically appears on top of the stone. Your TV lights up. Is that?
But you're not limited to stone. I mean, it could be fabric, it could be wood. I think they could almost do it with any material, really.
They can. Yep.
So I mean, that's just. Did you get the price on that, Chris?
Like I said, I think 70? Starting at 70,000 for a smaller.
But I don't like. I think Chris said I don't think that includes the audio.
No, the audio is more. I think we can add it post. But I think it wasn't cheap.
All right.
It starts at, if you have to ask. It starts at.
And they were using Lyngdorf amplification, so also not inexpensive. So the whole system though was, it was up there. But it was one of the jaw-dropping kind of moments at the show. Like, holy crap, look what they're doing with technology. It's pretty cool.
Right. Should we get to some more affordable projectors that are on our best in show?
Do we have to?
List? We have. Do you want to start with best bright room projector? Goes to the Epson Q Series 7000. And the best budget also goes to Epson, the LS 9000.
John, have you done any of the new Q Series in any of your installations? Or not really? That's many projectors.
No, we're big into Sony. I just finished reviewing though. It's not the 7000 or is it the 1000?
Maybe.
The QB, I think
QB
it was
1000.
slightly. Again, crazy bright. It's like, I think it retails for $7,000.
And it's like 4,000 lumens or something. It's
it's like it's very high. Although I will say, when you put it into a more color accurate mode, it loses a fair bit of that brightness.
Sure.
But for bright room watching, I mean, it is a light cannon compared to I have a Bravia 8 Sony projector. Compared to that, it's like, boom.
But even the Bravia 8 projector, I reviewed that a few months ago. It was also super bright. And I was comparing it to an older Epson. But I think what Epson was doing in their room with Rob Brennan, of course, who used to be at Sony, so he knows how to set everything up, right?
Yeah.
They were comparing comparably priced Sony JVC projectors to the Epson. And his point was, if you want to do HDR in a projector, you need a lot of lumens. And most projectors just don't have it. So, but the Epsons do, and he made a very strong case for it. And compared head to head with the Bravia 8 and the JVC, wasn't that might have been the 700. There was just so much more light output on those Epsons.
Yeah, it was I think it was the NX 800 or the NZ 800, whatever the new letter
it might have
is.
been. Maybe the NZ 800. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, are
again,
they amazing in contrast? Yes, JVC and Sony projectors are awesome, but Epson is better in a bright room. There's no question.
No question. True. And again, if you look at like what you would have to pay for a Barco or a Sony 10,000 lumen projector and how big that it would be, again, the Barcos are giganto. The Sony, I think, is 85 grand, and that doesn't include the lens.
Right.
So, again, this is coming at 30 and the same light output. And, like Chris said, although that wasn't even the 7,000 they were showing in there, was it? I think that because they were showing the $16,000 one.
You know what? I'm not 100% sure. I thought they had the 10,000 lumen model there, but
maybe they did. I thought I thought they were showing like 16 on 16 price points. But
that's true. Yes. And that would have been was it 7,000 lumen?
The step 3,000. Yeah. The QB3000, I think. But again, I mean, you could almost put it into a living room, especially if you had like a screen that had like some gain on it or something, for sure.
Yeah. And if you use a disappearing screen and drop down screen, then you've got a total stealth home theater system. So, when you don't want to watch TV, it's gone. And when you want it, press a button, screen comes down, projector pops out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
You're good to go.
So was that part of our best projection screen, the Seymour Screen Excellence trim auto masking, or is that something different you're talking about?
That's different. So in that $1.3 million home theater, they had a lowly $10,000 projection screen. And, you get a lot, Stewart gets a lot of love. And they make excellent screens, but the trim from Seymour is one of the least expensive motorized masking screens, which is awesome because it means, John and I both have 2.4 to 1 screen CinemaScope screens at home. I don't have a masking system, so when I turn on 16:9 content, it's sitting there in the middle of the wide screen. It's a 2.4 to 1 screen with gray areas on both sides. What the Seymour screen does is when you're watching Casablanca at 4:3, it just it masks everything except the center part of the screen. When you're watching Game of Thrones, it masks everything but 16:9. And when you're watching, again, Ben-Hur, it moves the mask completely out of the way and exposes the full, 2.4 to 1 CinemaScope screen. So having one that does that for only about 10,000 and 120-inch wide screen is pretty affordable, and it worked well and it worked quickly, which was nice. Now, if you're switching back and forth on on IMAX content, forget it. I mean, because it's going to be going, every time the aspect ratio changes. But, if you're watching a lot, mixed between watching, say, sports at 16:9, movies at 2.4 to 1, having that automatic masking is very nice. And it's a woven screen, so all the speakers were behind it. Didn't have to worry about it blocking the acoustics. So, yeah, I liked it.
All right. Sorry, Robert. I'm trying to get to you. We still have one more. We have one more TV or video winner, and this was the best art TV, and this was kind of a surprise.
Yes.
Goes to the Skyworth CE1 100-inch art TV, which I think is the biggest art TV now currently on the market. But what were they doing that's different than Samsung, the Frame, or some of the other competitors?
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, they're using obviously a completely matte screen, which that's something for art TV. That's pretty typical. But they're using QD mini LED backlighting. All the other art TVs are edge lit. And the fact that it's big, 100 inches, it looked really good. I didn't see any issue. And then, of course, it's also a regular TV too as well. So it has the capability of doing both. And I thought that the screen surface, the matte screen surface that they were using, apparently it's like a 3-layer matte. really brings out the texture in the artwork,
Hmm.
you know, and I was just really
Okay.
impressed with that. Now, whether or not they can really make an impact against, I mean, let's face it, when you think frame TV, you think Samsung,
Samsung. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it looks good,
Mhm.
but it's getting more competitive now with Hisense and TCL coming in, and Skyworth is, to me, seems to be taking a little gamble here with not only going art but also going big. You
Right.
know, whether or not, but according to their price, which that 100-incher is $6,000.
Oh, that's not terrible.
No, that's not terrible at all.
Yeah.
Whether or not they have the market distribution, because you don't, in the U.S. market, you don't think of Skyworth, doesn't roll off your tongue, you know. But if they and it's not an outdoor TV, because Skyworth has been emphasizing outdoor TVs. This is strictly an indoor TV. So, you know, but whether or not their distribution will be able to gain
Gotcha.
customers and everything, we'll just see how it goes. But if they come back next year with it again, or with something bigger, or
Right.
some improvement on it,
We'll see.
we'll see
Well,
what happens.
real quickly, I want to jump over to John. Do you get a lot of
Sure.
requests for the frame TV?
We do,
Yeah.
and we don't like it.
Okay. Sorry.
we don't like that outboard box.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's
Makes it
an
harder to
integration
install.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, you've got to put that box somewhere. It's component size. Technically, the cable's not rated for running inside of a wall.
Oh, boy.
It's only like 15 feet long. So it's the TV itself is great. It looks great on the wall. And I mean, the mounting system is a little weird, but it holds it super tight to the wall. But there's no love in the industry for that dumb outboard box.
Is there a wireless version of the frame? The Frame Pro?
Isn't the
is that-
frame
The Pro.
Pro?
The
Pro,
Yeah.
Pro, yeah. And that certainly is a good solution. I don't, again, though, a lot of times our customers are wanting to put stuff in other rooms. I think the range on that thing is 30 feet, and I'm not sure if it's 30 feet line of sight. I don't really know. We've not done one yet.
Okay.
But again, we know this industry, we love hardwired, because hardwired always works.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, you can put it into a panel that goes in the wall behind the TV. But now you're cutting a giant box into the wall, and the box has to be like, you know, 20 inches tall. And now you have height that, you know, it's like that box poses a lot of logistic challenges. And again, if you have a sound bar, there's no connections to the TV. The sound bar has to go back to that outboard box, because that's where the ARC connection is. So, you know, it's all well and good to design something in a lab, but when you actually have to go in the field to make it work in somebody's house, it can be completely different.
Well, have you seen that Samsung's partnering with who's the soundbar company?
Canvas.
With Canvas, yeah, and
Yeah.
they put the Canvas
Yes.
soundbar, which is an amazing soundbar, and they
Yeah.
built it in with the Frame TV. I think it's probably the Frame Pro. That looks impressive. They had it at IFA. They didn't have it at CEDIA, but I'd love to see what that looks like and sounds like in person.
I saw the Canvas at CES, and I was really interested by it. It was a non-working
really is a great
static
sounding
demo.
bar.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I got one in for review now. I've seen it at multiple shows. I know they weren't at CEDIA, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But if you're looking for a soundbar system, like, that's the one to get.
Yeah.
Just a spoiler on that. It's pretty impressive what that
Yeah.
thing can do.
All right.
Can be mounted. But now that we're switching over to audio, I want to acknowledge some best in show winners. Do we
I
want to?
think I'm gonna need to dip
You're
out
gonna-
here. I
Okay.
gotta get our schedule done for tomorrow's work day, unfortunately.
All right.
No, thanks for
But
joining, John.
thank you for letting me be on, and
Yes.
we'll have to do it again. Appreciate
No, I
it.
appreciate it,
cool.
John. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you, bud. Thanks. All right. Well, let's
All right.
let's switch over to audio. Let's just go back to the top. What did they
Okay,
put
back to
in
the
the
top.
$1.3 million system?
Well,
was in
that
there?
was the demo that that started poorly, sadly.
Right.
But once they got it working, wow! I mean, it had Ascendo's new Halo speakers, which look like flying saucers. They're really
Oh,
cool
yeah.
looking with multiple drivers aligned in like a circle, and they
Yeah.
were behind the screen because it was a woven Seymour screen. And they did
Yeah.
use, I think there were actually 64-inch infrasonic subwoofers in the back.
Yes.
THE, the 64 sub is what they call it. They don't really publish pricing. I might have been able to get that from if I'd asked at the show, but what they did say is that the whole audio system for the Ascendo system, including the amplification, was over $750,000. So the subs can't be cheap. But there were two of them. They each had 64-inch drivers, and then there was a buttload of additional subwoofers in the front and the back. It did not use waveforming, which was interesting because usually our best in show winners the last couple of years have been Trinnov-based waveforming systems. This was Storm Audio. They do use double bass arrays, and they do use, the same kind of emit and absorb kind of strategy that was, I think, perfected by Trinnov with waveforming. But this goes to show you that you don't have to have a Trinnov to have an amazing sounding, $1.3 million system. And then there's another one, spoiler alert, that did have a Trinnov with waveforming that proved that you don't need to spend $1 million and have a Trinnov system, because the other system for about 180K did use waveforming, different speaker companies, different projector, etc. But it sounded great for 180. So if you had a budget of 1.3 million, you don't necessarily have to use waveforming. You can still get great results. And if your budget's a little more limited, only 185,000, then you can actually get a Trinnov-based waveforming system and get excellent results with fewer subwoofers, fewer speakers, and less cash up front.
Yeah, so let's go over that best in show system under 200,000. This one was by NextLevel Acoustics, with Trinnov, digital projections, speaker power, Valencia home theater seating.
They're kind of lesser known brand names, at least as far as consumers go. But it was a great sounding system. It was about the same size room as what they had the $1.3 million system in. They did use the Lumagen processor, not the madVR processor. So Lumagen is another competitive video processor that does HDR tone mapping and all the fun stuff that other like the madVR processor does. I think comparably priced. I think the Lumagen processor isn't necessarily any more expensive or less expensive than the madVR ones. But the images looked amazing. The sound was incredible. The room was nice and pressurized. You had that feel it in your gut kind of bass. Again, it's like pick your poison and name your budget. And there are going to be solutions out there that can give you incredible results for really virtually any price point. Well, maybe not $5,000. It would be hard to get a $5,000 full home theater system with all the sound and all the image that something like what you'd see at CEDIA. But in the 20, there was a system there for around 20K that was good. There was the SVS system that was only around under 12 for the audio that also sounded amazing. It was so good it blew the roof off the room. By the time I got there, the room didn't even have a roof anymore. Crazy.
You go
$1,000 worth of audio.
You go into the SVS booth and you hear all this exhibit hall noise and everything like that, and then they just turn on the system and it all goes away.
It all goes away, and they, instead of needing ceiling speakers or reflective speakers, which obviously wouldn't work when you have no roof, they use the prime elevation speakers, which go at the top of the wall right at the ceiling level to create the height effects for Dolby. So that was just a 5.2.4 system, I think.
5.2.
And half the price of the system was the two 17-inch subs, which were the ported version, which sell for like $3,000 each. So, if you have a smaller room and you don't need massive, huge subs that go down to like 12 hertz, then you could actually save quite a bit and still go with the Evolution series SVS speakers, primes, maybe bookshelves in the back, and come around with a $6,000 to $8,000 system that would sound really awesome. And they also look amazing. I mean, the SVS speakers look like, I shouldn't say it, but they look a lot like the Focal speakers. I mean, Focal they're also amazing, but they are a much higher price point. So you've got design cues on the SVS Ultra Evolution series that you would normally only find on the multi-thousands of dollars systems. So, well done, SVS, as usual. Nothing brand new at the show this year, but still a very impressive demo.
Robert, any thoughts so far on these three systems? We still have one more home theater system today.
I was very impressed with the SVS. Also, too, that less than that $180,000 system. The more I experience waveforming, the more I'm sold on it. I mean, it is fantastic. I mean, you can just tell right away when you go from these different, let's say, different demos, and you go into one where there's waveforming, whether or not they're using 4 subs or 8 subs or whatever. It's just like, boom, the bass just gets dialed in perfectly.
Right.
And it's precise and it's distinct and it's just great. I mean, it's just great. If they can scale it down even more.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if waveforming was in like a consumer receiver someday?
Yeah.
And the thing that sets it apart, I think, is that you get that bass response in the front row, middle row, back row, far left, far right.
Yeah.
It's uniform bass response throughout the room.
Yes.
But you know, the JBL synthesis system also proved you don't need, you know, waveforming. You get all these like sexy names like madVR and Trinnov and waveforming, and JBL, well established in the CI community as a solid, you know, provider of audio gear. They had a $250,000 system, $250,000 with 4 massive subwoofers, but they were in-wall models. So that was more of a stealth system that would get installed into the walls. So you don't really see it. You don't know it's there until you know, the movie comes on and boom, you're blown away.
Yeah.
So, you know, JBL may not get a lot of the love as one of the, you know, hot new brands because they've been around for, you know, decades, but they can still rock the house as they showed with that synthesis system at the show. Was it 11.4.8 or something?
11.4.8 is what.
So 11 channels all around in walls. 4 of the large subwoofers also in walls, and then I guess 8, you know, 8 of the synthesis or the JBL speakers up on top for the height effects. So very immersive, awesome sounding system. I don't even know what projector they were using. I think it added about $50K to the system, but the audio alone was around a $250,000. So chump change.
Well, one setup that I was really disappointed in was Sony. I wrote this extensive article about Wisdom Audio's new. They have an basically an outdoor derivative of some of their indoor speakers, but they also promoted that they were going to be having this big 9.4 system with their controllers and everything in the Sony booth. With their CLED screen,
the crystal LED
screen, crystal LED, which looked great. But the problem is that the booth was not closed; it was just open. People walking in and out. And then there was the room wasn't closed off, so the effectiveness of the 9.4 Wisdom Audio system was like.
It was lost.
Was that an outdoor system? Was that an outdoor system?
No, that was not an outdoor system.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it shows that you know how you install it is going to make a big difference. I mean, by doing it that way, they can certainly expose it to more people. Because like this sound room 11, sound room 7, all the sound rooms along that wall, they had lines. Sometimes you'd have to wait in line 20, 30 minutes just to hear a demo. And people were excited about it because it was an event. It was like, you know, you're going in, it's like having tickets to a movie, you know. Of course, as press, we sometimes got to cut the line. Sorry. The PR people would be like, hell yeah, you want to check out this demo. So we were just running from room to room to room. I still feel like I only saw about half of what was at the show, if that. And I apologize to all the vendors that I saw last year that I didn't see this year, and I might not see again next year. I think we should send more people next year. Brian, as I've mentioned, it would be great to have 3 or 4 people cover the show instead of just me and Robert. But I do feel like we got the high points of it, and maybe some of the low points.
Yeah, we're still going. We still have more winners we got to cover.
More winners.
Winners.
We briefly alluded to Theory Audio, but they have 2 wins on this list. Best bang for your buck speaker, the IC5, which is an in-wall speaker.
In-wall in ceiling,
In-wall in ceiling, or even pendant.
Or in pendant, or in like they can put it in a lot of different things.
And then they also have one other thing. Help me out, Chris.
Best outdoor speaker.
Best outdoor speaker.
Yeah, it was actually introduced last year, but they did it to us again. They were, you know, as John mentioned, Theory Audio's demos are the best. Paul Hales, fellow drummer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, rock and roll baby. He puts on a great presentation. He really seems like the common sense option, right? Because their stuff is not that expensive. The IC5s that they introduced this year are only about $700 each. I was a little disappointed because I think the IC6s were around that price last year, but maybe it's
they had to raise they've
gone up to like about $1,000 per speaker. So that's a bit of a price increase, like 30% year over year. Hopefully that'll come down a little bit. Maybe if the tariffs are kind of worked out, I don't know. But he played a demo and it sounded like it was coming from above us and all around us. And he said, "Yep, that was the bollard speaker. That's the outdoor speaker." And fooled you again. And no matter what housing they put it in, whether it was in the wall, in the ceiling, in a pendant, they all sounded wide open, dynamic, impactful. And as John mentioned, you can spend, you can put yourself together a whole house and home theater system and still have enough money left in the budget to buy a house. So if it's the $1 million theory system includes a house.
Right. You don't
it's a funny
have
way
to
of looking
spend...
at it, but it does put things in perspective, right?
Right.
If you're spending 1.3 million and you're not getting a house, maybe you're doing it wrong. Or maybe you had a $5 million house. That too. Could be.
Right. So Theory Audio, always impressive. I've been to their design center in Southern California. If you're in the area, Paul will give you an amazing demo of all the systems in home theater, and it's not cheap. Like you're still going to spend 10.
Oh yeah.
You're still going to spend 5 to 10 to 20 to 30, maybe more.
They don't really have consumer products. Like their stuff is only available through the CI channels, pretty much.
Right.
I mean, you can get their soundbar, which Ian reviewed a couple of years ago and loved it. But they don't really have a strong consumer presence. They're really more like, custom integrators and putting together these systems for theme parks and for homes and for businesses. And choosing the Theory and the Pro speakers, because of the bang for buck and the performance.
Right. Well, you mentioned soundbars, so let's get to our two best soundbars on our list for different reasons. But let's start with the luxury model, the Steinway Lyngdorf Model S. Probably one of the most beautiful soundbars.
It sure is.
Buy.
Yep. For $17K, it better be.
Yes.
Robert, did you get to hear them? Did you go into the room for the demo?
You've
written about them in the past.
Yes, I missed the Steinway Lyngdorf exhibit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what they said was that they were very resistant to even building a soundbar. They're like, no, that's not our bag, baby. And they, because they're design forward, they like things to look as elegant as they sound amazing, right? So, but the customers and their dealers were saying, listen, people want a soundbar. They've got this 85-inch TV on the wall. They want sound that's going to match it, but it's going to blend in well with their particular design sensibility. So Steinway, the piano company, it is a partnership between Steinway and Lyngdorf Audio to create the Steinway Lyngdorf products, including the Model S soundbar. It's gorgeous and it sounds amazing. $17,000 starting price, and if you want the amplifiers, which you're gonna need because it's a passive soundbar, then you're spending about $40K. So yes, for that much money, it better sound great, but it doesn't just sound great. It really looks amazing. It looks like a fine piece of furniture, basically.
And our second winner for best streaming soundbar, the Bluesound Pulse Cinema. What do you think they're doing that's going to be a threat to maybe the Sonos or Sony or Samsung soundbars out there? Chris?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Well, you know me, I hardly ever listen to stereo music anymore. I am one of the people that has embraced multi-channel sound, spatial audio, Dolby Atmos music, Sony 360 reality audio. I think a well-mixed Dolby Atmos song just sounds so more immersive and involving than a stereo mix. So I have been waiting, not very patiently, for the major streaming platforms to embrace Dolby Atmos music. The only one that has so far is Sonos. The only one that can get the Dolby Atmos right out of the music services is Sonos. And that is still true. But at least at CEDIA EXPO, Bluesound, one of the top streaming providers and platforms, did release a soundbar as well as the new version of the PowerNode. And both of these products do surround sound. The soundbars have up-firing drivers. They can do Dolby Atmos. The PowerNode has a center channel output, so we can do the front, left, and center output. And then you put the powered Bluesound speakers in the back or another node in the back to be the rear channels. Right. But they only do surround sound from the HDMI eARC input, right? So they're not there yet. They don't have the ability to have the, say, the Amazon Music app within the Bluesound app, Blue OS, or the Apple Music or Tidal, which all support Dolby Atmos music. They don't have the ability to tap into that directly within the app to do Dolby Atmos music. But hey, it's a start. So, you know, you can plug in a Fire TV stick or a Apple TV and plug that in HDMI to the PowerNode or to the, what's it called? The new soundbar? Pulse Cinema?
Pulse Cinema.
Yeah, you can plug it into the Pulse Cinema and you will get Dolby Atmos surround sound from any of your movie services that support Dolby Atmos or the music services as well. So again, Atmos Music, Apple Music, Tidal. So it's a start, and I think it shows that they're looking at that. They're considering that. WIM, on the other hand, has got like a home theater thing that they're doing in test right now, but it requires you put one WIM in the front and a different one in the back. Doesn't have center channel outputs. It just does a phantom center channel. Doesn't support Dolby Atmos. So they're not there yet. If you want Dolby Atmos music, really in a streaming platform, Sonos is still the high watermark. But now Bluesound is making inroads.
All right. Well, yeah, let's congratulate Bluesound on Best Streamer with their new PowerNode, the N331, as well as their Pulse Cinema soundbar.
That's annoying, actually. They have a PowerNode, and then they have a new PowerNode, and they have an even newer PowerNode. I don't like the model naming. You know, there is a separate model number, the N331, like you said. But it's confusing as hell. I was just trying to look up the prices, and I'm looking up Node Power, you know, Node Blue OS, whatever, Bluesound Node.
I like it that they keep it simple.
Different versions.
I like that they keep it simple, but
it's confusing.
So we still have an outdoor speaker category, which we alluded to with the Theory Audio outdoor speakers, which also won that because they're the same speakers that go inside your house. They just put them outside in a different waterproof housing. So they sound good inside, they sound good outside. And then on the more budget friendly option, Klipsch kind of surprised everyone with a new outdoor speaker. Who wants to talk about that?
Robert?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. Yeah. I was pretty impressed with the Klipsch outdoor speakers. They sounded better than I expected them to sound. They said, I mean, Klipsch sounds good, but I was just going to say, this sounds really good for these compact design and everything. And they were being powered by the new part of this partnership that's going on is that they're partnering with Integra. So it's being powered by a stack of Integra processing and amplification. And it just sounded great. And the subwoofer sounded good.
I think they're selling them. Oh, I was going to say they're selling them as like a pack of 4. I was trying to figure this out. Pack of 4 with a sub.
Pack of 4 plus the sub.
Right. Sub, yes. Yeah. So it's a 4.1.
Yeah, you could call it that, but I think it's really just, you know, whatever configuration you want it to be. It can each can be mono, or it can be 2 stereo pairs. It's however you feed it and however you drive it.
Well, not only that, they offer a 2-channel expansion pack, so you could go 6.
Yep, exactly.
Or
so yeah, you could
8.
You could use them to put together a surround sound system, or just to have, you know, sound that just fills your backyard. That again,
this will definitely fill your backyard.
Yeah, we have a kind of a quick demo on a short on YouTube that doesn't really capture it all that well, but at least it's a hint of what it sounds like. And for $17.99 for 4 outdoor speakers,
copyright. I think we got copyright flags, so I had to shorten.
So we had to shorten the demo quite a bit just to be able to even put it out there. So, but YouTube and the copyright strikes.
We do have one more final product that made the list, best in show, and this is the FlexConnect system, Dolby Atmos by TCL. This is a pretty cool setup. We have another separate video on this. Hope you guys will check out. But Chris, do you want to fill us in quickly on that as we wrap up this show?
Yeah, so this is something that I think Dolby announced almost 2 years ago, right? It's been out there for a while. And then I think more recently TCL and I believe Hisense said they were going to be supporting the platform. Anyway, what it is Dolby Atmos, it's immersive sound, right? And you usually get Dolby Atmos by buying a soundbar and maybe a rear pair of speakers. And installation can be a little bit complicated, very specific about where you can put the speakers or have to put the speakers. So the thing about FlexConnect is it's designed to work with a single speaker, 2 speakers, 3 speakers, 4 speakers. It's designed to be expandable and it's designed to compensate for less than ideal room placement.
Yes.
Right. So the first to market is the Z100 speaker, not the radio station. That's what I know Z100 about. Anyway, it's a speaker. It's a little cylindrical speaker by TCL, the Z100, and they also have a Z100 subwoofer. And you can basically place the speakers wherever it's convenient in your room, maybe one on each side of the TV and one behind you. But it could be behind off to the left. It could be off to the right. And what it does is you tell it how far you are away from the speaker, and it generates a test tone, and it figures out exactly where each speaker is. And then it uses kind of like phantom imaging creation to create virtual speakers where they're not, right? It's similar to what Sony does with 360 sound mapping, spatial sound mapping. But it's Dolby's version. And I did get to hear a demo in the TCL booth. They had 3 of their Z100 speakers and the subwoofer, which sell for about $1,200 for the whole package, which if it's TCL means probably gonna be like $600 or $700 at street. But that's the MSRP before any promotions. And they did a good job. And they can also use the TV's built-in speakers to fill things out even more. So for dialogue to lock it on the screen. So I think for the first implementation of Dolby Atmos FlexConnect, very successful. It worked reliably. While we were setting it up, we kept getting interrupted with people coming into the room, but they still managed to get it set up properly and get good sound out of it. Listen to a few sound clips, and it was quite impressive for the price and for the ease of setup. Again, just plug in the speakers, go into a little setup on the TV, hit play, does a little test tone, and sets everything up for you. So pretty well done.
All right. Well, I think we covered the list of our best in show somehow. I think we got to all of it. We'll have all of this in a full write-up on the website that we hope you guys will check out. And any closing thoughts on the show? I know John alluded to in the beginning that thought there weren't as many breakthroughs this year. What do you guys think the vibe of this year's CEDIA Expo?
Well, I'll start. I was going to say, I kind of tend to agree that there wasn't like revolutionary, like, oh my God, this is the next big thing. And also, Hisense, two big players. Hisense wasn't there, and they're usually there. They have been the last few years. And LG had like a minimal presence. I didn't even see them there. Chris mentioned
I didn't either.
Okay, yeah. And so I was just wondering what was going on with that. And I was disappointed with Sony. Sony usually has a really extravagant press event, morning press event, and they didn't even do that this year. They had the booth, but like they didn't bring their a prototype of their their little RGB concept like they had they've been demonstrating recently. And I don't know, it was just the energy was just a little bit different this year. And also I missed Focal.
Oh yeah, they weren't there, right?
Focal and name, I didn't see Focal and name.
Yeah.
And after last year's, what it was like last year with that Utopia system was like,
oh yeah.
I really wish that they would have been there. I would have been sitting in there seeing what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, Sony's booth, like you said, it was impressive. They were showing a lot of things, but nothing was brand new. And I think that's why they didn't have the presser. They didn't have a press event like they normally would. I will say, you know, they were doing a lot of the demos and comparisons that we've seen before.
Sure.
You know, they did a comparison between the new Bravia 7 projector and
Yes.
the version that it's replacing to
Right.
show how much better the tone mapping is.
Right.
And they had a lot of impressive products on display, but nothing that was really standing out. And I think, you know, they are going to have news. Will it be at CES? Hopefully, we'll have the production version of the RGB LED TV,
Right.
RGB mini LED TV. Samsung did have their micro
Yes, they
RGB,
did.
they call it the RGB backlight.
The most confusing
LCD
technology for a new TV name. Can they make it more confusing by just adding
Well,
more?
honestly,
names?
they improved
Yeah.
it. At CES, they were
They
calling
did.
it micro LED, which is a totally different category. That's the one we were talking
Right.
about earlier with the
Yeah.
two
Right.
systems. So at least now they're calling it something new, micro RGB LED. So it's different, and it is different.
Right.
Instead of using the blue backlights and a quantum dot color layer or a white backlight and a standard color filter, they're
Right.
using RGB, red, green, and blue backlight elements. They're able to reach
Yes.
100%, they say, of Rec 2020, which is very impressive. It was a great looking TV. It's 115 inch, but $30,000. It's a little pricey for what it offers. But then they also had, I think, another 115 inch TV there, the QN90F maybe, that was around the same price. So it's hard to
Right.
see. You know, I would expect the RGB, it being their flagship technology, would be
Right.
significantly more expensive than the non
It is.
RGB
It's
version. But maybe they,
$30,000 for that TV. It's $30,000 for the
yeah. Well, the
micro
other one
RGB.
is about 27, so it's only
Right.
a little bit less, and it's not even 8K, right? So I was a little surprised that they had two TVs, same size, very close to each other in price, when one is their, you know, their flagship RGB, you know, backlight.
Right.
So that was a great looking TV. Maybe if we were awarding individual TVs best in show,
Yeah.
it would be in the running for that, and maybe it deserves it, because it was
Yeah.
a very impressive looking TV. But like you said, the technology is still not really well defined. They're talking about it uses a color filter, it doesn't use a color filter. The rep at the booth said it does not use a color filter, but
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't see how that's possible when you've
Right.
got less than a 1-to-1 relationship between the lighting and the LCD
Yes.
pixels.
Yeah.
So I think some of that, you know, we need a Caleb Dennison video on that TV. Oh wait, there is one.
I think he
right?
did
Didn't
one.
Samsung publish a Caleb Dennison video on the micro RGB
Yeah.
TV? I should watch that,
No.
because then I'd really know how it works.
No.
That's the other news I did want to mention. We
Mm.
have a social post about it, but
Yes.
Caleb Dennison
Yeah.
is back. He's
Yep.
settled his differences with Digital Trends, and he's already started posting videos again. So it's been nice having all of you guys for the past like few months. We know you're all going to leave and just go watch Caleb from now on.
Yeah.
But hopefully you'll
Yeah.
have time in your day for all of us. You know, we can all
Well,
Yeah.
just get along and provide
Yeah,
just a
well,
little bit different content.
Yeah, that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.
We want to thank everyone for tuning in to this Best in Show from CEDIA Expo 2025. Thank you to Chris Boylan, editor at large, Robert Silva, senior news correspondent. And of course, like, subscribe, comment, let us know what we missed, what you did like, and
Yeah.
everything else in between. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone next time. Thanks.
Bye bye, everybody.